friends, Bobbi Boudman here, running for state representative in District 7, which is Ossipee, Tuftonboro, and Wolfboro. We are going to continue with these, little videos on sussing out who's telling the truth. Just quick recap. I wrote in the paper in the Conway Daily Sun on August 9th a list of 10 bills to get us going on discussion because Representative Glenn Cordelli refuses to show up at forums. He refuses to debate, and all he's doing is taking to newspapers and social media to call me a liar for running on his legislation, his sponsored bills, and his votes. So I'm just going through one at a time of the issues to point out actually how his votes and legislation really were. Okay, so today we are on number 5. Which I stated, again, I invited just conversation to get it rolling, just some of his bills and sponsors. Number 5, sponsored legislation to put non-accredited teachers in our public schools. So that's all I wrote, that one sentence, sponsored legislation to put non-accredited teachers in our public schools. Now, Mr. Cordelli answered... Number 5, I supposedly sponsored legislation to put non-accredited teachers in public schools, according to Miss Boudman. I think she must be referring to the bill I sponsored to try to help address teacher shortage problem. It would have allowed districts to hire people with expertise and significant experience. Okay, so that's the key word there. Evidently, Miss Boudman does not feel that school districts are capable of hiring qualified people. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say that we have a trade school, we have trades, we have programs. We bring in people who are experienced and educated in different fields. We have welding, and but once in the system and once we bring them in, they go through a process. Not full on getting their teacher accreditation and learning how to teach kindergartners ba ka, all that stuff. Anyway, so this is totally different. So we're gonna just jump through this, and we're going to see if they just were experienced people, or if he sponsored, Glenn Cordelli sponsored legislation that any old 18-year-old could walk in and teach our children without any experience and just a background check. Here we go. So let's do it. Let's go to the first tab. And here we have Bill SB 374, and it's a Senate bill, and that was currently this year. And it did get voted down, but let's click on the bill and see what it says and see if he sponsored this legislation, my friends. Here we go. So, relative to the licensing of part-time teachers, and right here on this is sponsor Cordelli, right here. And let's look what it said when it was introduced. Here's the full bill. An act relative to the licensing of part-time teachers. New section, part-time teachers defined. Amend RSA 189 by inserting after section 39B the following new section. Part-time teacher defined. A part-time teacher is not required to hold a state board of education credential, provided that they work less than 30 hours. They seek a criminal history record check clearance authorization from the Department of Education as outlined in RSA 189.13. They are subject to the Code of Conduct of Ethics, and any person who has had an educator credential, educator license, who's rendered ineligible. So I'm not seeing anywhere on this Cordelli sponsored bill, SB 374, where's the experience? Okay. That said, there is another bill, and I will give him credit for that. But this bill clearly does not state you need experience. So let's click over to his other bill. Okay, this bill, 1298, relative to the definition of part-time teachers. And yes, there's experience on this one, but there's something that's detrimental to our teachers on it too, which we're going to look at. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, Glenn Cordelli, prime sponsor. And again, this is the definition of a part-time teacher. And this time on this bill, they did add that, where is it? Has expertise and significant professional experience. Again, like our trades people in our trade schools. So that we can go with. The problem with this bill is right here. This is absolutely detrimental to our teachers. This was a babysitter bill, basically. The local school shall appoint a supervising teacher to oversee and participate in the evaluation of each part-time teacher's work and effectiveness. So I've been in the schools. I subbed for a year and a half. If the teachers had to come in and oversee me and babysit me and watch me, they just don't have enough time. I mean, we can't put that on our teachers. And I just let's just go forward with this theory that Mr. Cordelli is trying to help our public schools and not just downgrade our teachers. Let's look at some other things that actually would have helped our teachers in our schools and employment that Mr. Cordelli voted against, and just the downgrading of our educational system in general. So we did 1298. Okay, SB 217. Let's look at this bill. So this bill is establishing a rural and underserved area educator incentive program. So what this bill was brought forward because our rural areas obviously have a harder time attracting accredited teachers. So this bill that was proposed to just give a little bonus to teachers if they take a job in a rural area. So let's click on this and see what it says. So this absolutely could have helped. So basically what this did is it said if you are an accredited teacher and you go to a rural area, you're going to get a bonus of $1,500 the first year. You stay for a second year, $2,500. You stay for a third year, $3,500. You stay for a fourth year, $4,500 extra dollars, which in the grand scheme of things, that amount of money in our underserved rural areas, that amount, even on the fourth year, is less than one school voucher. So put that in perspective. So a teacher who could be teaching 20 students would get a bonus of less than one school voucher, one Cordelli school voucher. So that program, but let's look at the roll call and the votes and see if Glenn Cordelli, who's saying he wants to help the teacher shortage, how he voted on that. So this is inexpedient to legislate, and I don't know if we've been through that before. We probably have, but basically the bill's dead. The bill's killed. So if we go to the yeses of who killed this bill to help put teachers in the classroom in our rural areas, again, I always go, oh, Lino, right there, and then what's Boopie Pie's name over in Wakefield? I can't think of his name right. Oh, Belcher. Is Belcher on there? Oh, he must have missed that day. And then we're going to go down and see if there's Cordelli voting to kill the bill that would have helped put some rural teachers in our schools. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. So the next thing that would have been very helpful to helping our teacher shortage is loan forgiveness for teachers who got their education in our state and are going to teach in our state. So it would just be loan forgiveness from our state schools, from our, UNH, Plymouth, our schools. And that just came up on October 3rd. And here is what Mr. Cordelli had to say. I'm going to play the video so you can just hear it transpire, but I'm going to skip ahead 5 and 10 seconds till we get to Mr. Cordelli after the bill's explained. Okay?
So we'll start with the lowest number first, and that would be HB 623. And that bill was interim studied, and it's establishing a teacher candidate loan forgiveness program. And I'd like to look for a motion on that. Yes, Representative Hall.
I make a motion that we recommend HB 623 for future legislation.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to interim study that would be recommended for future legislation. Is there any further discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
Representative Cordelli?
Yes, I have an issue with loan forgiveness. What about people who have already paid off their loans? I think that there is some unfairness built into such a program as provided for in this bill. So I am a no on this.
I'd like to also speak to it.
Okay, so Cordelli just had a chance there to help teachers who, quite honestly, are underpaid. And part of the reason they're underpaid is we have a retirement system with our retired teachers that we as a state, we're supposed to be helping fund our retirement 25%. And then years ago, they settled on that they were going to send us, I think it was 7% or something. But they send us nothing. So here in GWRSD, we have all these amazing teachers who are retired, and they're starting to retire more and more. But because we're spending all that money on the retirement system and the funds with no support, we're lowering the pay for our teachers over and over and over. And again, the system is not sustainable the way it is. So we have a lot of work to do. But Cordelli's been in there for 12 years and he's done none of it. He's just growing, absolutely grow. Again, $104 million for his school vouchers. His universal school vouchers were already up to 44, and next year 60 million. But okay, so that's one issue. But the downgrading of the teachers, he's got a history of it. Let's talk about. Here's his website, and in 2021, he really went around and he pushed this program called Prenda and these little learning pods. And you can see here. And he went out to Wakefield and he went around to all the communities to try and encourage people to take their children out of schools and do these learning pods in their homes where we all get together and we each teach something, which is great if you have the skill and the time and you, I guess, are independently wealthy and you can afford it. But most families cannot. So what happened with this Prenda program is that the executive council, and this is crazy, 100 students were enrolled in this program, And the executive council awarded $5.8 million. So let's do the math. That's $58,000 per student for these, what were called the micro schools, these Prenda pods that Cordelli was pushing everywhere. So there are no accredited teachers in these Prenda pods. It's just, putting people in your home and saying that you have other people coming over, which, again, homeschooler mom here, and we did that. Like, we had art classes in our house. Oddly, we had an accredited New Hampshire teacher. My mother-in-law had retired, and she was an art teacher for over 20 years. She worked at Newfound Regional High School as the art teacher there, and she taught when my son homeschooled, she taught my son and two other students at the time, but then other students would come in and do it too. But these Prenda pods weren't about that. That's not what it was about. But we ended up paying the first year and a half, I think, at that higher $5.8 million, and then it was downgraded to a smaller amount. But anyway, this goes back to, again, Glenn Cordelli misrepresenting who he is and how he's legislating for us. And he absolutely did create legislation that any old 18-year-old could just walk in, I guess, and get a job at 30 hours per week, and then they'd have to be babysat by one of our accredited teachers. So, again, Bobbi Boudman running for state representative in Ossipee, Tufton Borough, and Wolfboro. Please vote on November 5th. Thanks.